Hey, what's going on, y'all? It's the Hoops Guru, and I am back after a long hiatus. I'm jumping back into the YouTube pool just for you, man. I'm going to talk basketball with you. So if you're a hoops junkie like I am, click that subscribe button because I'm going to be putting out content from the NBA mock draft to the NBA restart to the NBA draft lottery to the NBA draft and to the 2021 season, man. This could be your home for horts. This could be your home for hoops. This could be your home for hoops. That's hilarious. But yeah, so click that subscribe button, man. But today we're talking the NBA mock draft. Now, we don't have the actual draft order, so we're going to go with the predicted draft order as of today, as you've probably seen all over the internet. And as of today, the number one pick in the draft would be the Golden State Warriors. As we know, this team is NBA championship caliber talent. So the person they pick is not going to be a player that's going to change the culture, but it just enhance and solidify what they have. So to me, there's not one player who fits that bill as good as James Wiseman out of Memphis, the 7'1" left-handed center who can run the floor, block shots, has a nice mid-range shot. And he's going to be great in the pick and roll. He's going to be great catching those weak side alley-oops off of Draymond Green drives. And he's just the perfect plug-and-play player for the Golden State Warriors. James Wiseman is going to be the number one pick and possibly going to be in the NBA Finals his first year with the Golden State Warriors. I think it's almost like an alley-oop. I don't think or they should go in any other direction. It's a match made in heaven. James Wiseman going to that team, especially after losing Kevin Durant. And they've never really had, they've had centers by committee and been successful. But to get a talent like James Wiseman on a rookie contract, you're going to be lock him up for 4 years. You don't have to pay him anything really. It's perfect. So number one overall for the Golden State Warriors, if they keep the number one pick, will be, has to be, should be James Wiseman. And with the number two pick in the draft, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers selecting LaMelo Ball. The Cleveland Cavaliers have a weird roster, and they need as much help as they can get. I mean, honestly, it looks like they have like 6 point guards and 6 power forwards and nothing else in between. Maybe 2 centers. That's what their roster is comprised of. And LaMelo Ball will give them a guy that can play some shooting guard or play some point small forward. And also, he can actually get asses in the seats. Like, no one's really paying attention to Cleveland at all. They probably don't have any national television games, and LaMelo Ball can generate for an organization that desperately needs to get back in the attention column. Plus, he's also a guy who could play some point forward and maybe take some pressure off the Colin Sexton and set up guys like Kevin Love for some easy buckets. But Cleveland has a lot of moves to make to clean up their roster. I see some changes coming up once free agency starts. Some guys getting traded and adding some players that can give this roster a better sense of balance. Like I said, they have too many point guards on the roster right now. I mean, you have Dante Exum, you have Brandon Knight, Matthew Dellavedova, Colin Sexton. You have Darius Garland. There's way too many guards. And then you have, and with the power forwards, you have Drummond who plays some power forward and center, Kevin Love, John Henson still there. You have Tristan Thompson. So that roster needs to get cleaned up. And I think LaMelo Ball will be the first step to give this team some recognition and also some type of dynamic play that they desperately need, and maybe he can be their Luka Doncic going forward. So number two with the Cleveland Cavaliers, I have them selecting LaMelo Ball. With the number 3 pick, the Minnesota Timberwolves going to really luck out if the draft pans out the way this looks, which is more than likely it definitely won't, because like I said, the draft lottery hasn't been organized yet. But for entertainment purposes, if the draft does turn out the way I have here, they're going to be the extremely happy team to have Anthony Edwards fall into their lap. I think Anthony Edwards is exactly what the Minnesota Timberwolves need. The dynamic shooting guard, out of Georgia is a walking bucket. And I think playing along D'Angelo Russell, he'll get actually set Anthony Edwards up for some easier shots than he was getting when he was playing for the University of Georgia this year. Anthony Edwards can jump out the gym, explosive, has a nice pull-up shot, and he's going to take a lot of pressure off of Russell and Karl Anthony Towns. And I think he can be a part of a young big three, for lack of a better term, for the Minnesota Timberwolves. You have Russell at the one and Anthony Edwards at the two. Karl Anthony Towns can play the five. And, you still got guys like Allen Crabbe who can come in and play your small forward. And Omar Spearman at the power forward. And so at least it's a little something to work with. And then with the bench, you still have Jarrett Culver coming off the bench, and you can strengthen up your second unit that way with guys like Evan Turner on the bench as well. But I just think, especially in the Wild Wild West, you're going to need someone like Anthony Edwards that can really attack, put points on the board, create his own shots, and able to help spread the floor and make life easier for guys like Russell and Karl Anthony Towns. Sometimes great talent just falls in your lap. It reminds me of when the Washington Wizards were able to get Bradley Beal because the Charlotte Hornets took Michael Kidd-Gilchrist one spot ahead, and we know who's had the better career out of those two. So, if the draft pans out this way, I'm sure the Minnesota Timberwolves will be extremely ecstatic to get a great talent as Anthony Edwards is number 3 in this year's draft. With the number 4 pick in this year's draft, I have the Atlanta Hawks. Now, this team can go in a lot of different directions because there's need across the board, even though there is a lot of talent on that team. I think the Hawks were one of the biggest underachievers. If you look at a lot of people's preseason predictions, as opposed to where they were today, is a very disappointing season. So they're just going to be able to interested in adding talent. And I think the talent that they're going to go for is Obi Toppins out of Dayton. Obi Toppins is a great aggressive power forward, really made great strides this year in the NCAA. Fast on the break, powerful, good rebounder, runs the floor, and I think he'll be a great player to run alongside with Trae Young. Another reason I think that the Hawks are going to make this pick is because I think they're going to use John Collins as a trading chip to acquire some other talent across the league. I see them going after Jaylen Brown from Boston. I know Boston would love to get their hands on John Collins. They tried a few times last year. And I think Jaylen Brown wants to get out under the shadow of Tatum as well. And I think playing in Orlando, where he's from, along Trae Young, he could be like a leader of that team. And then you'll have a situation where you have Trae Young, you have Jaylen Brown, Obi Toppins, and Clinton Capella. That's something you could work with. And, you still have the guys you drafted last year in DeAndre Hunter and Cam Reddish. Kevin Huerter's still there to be able to shoot the ball. So, you still have a good, solid bench. Backup point guards with Jeff Teague with that second unit. And like I said, an aggressive player like Jaylen Brown who wants to make that leap to being an all-star and a leader of the team. I think that may be something that Atlanta will be interested in doing. And Obi Toppins can spell John Collins, I think, immediately, even though he won't put up those exact type of numbers Collins put up this year. I think he could put up some decent ones and get there in a few years, and it buys Atlanta some time because John Collins is going to be looking for a payday real soon. So if you can get rid of a player like that and bring in an asset and a leader like Jaylen Brown, get a good pick like Obi Toppins, I think you really have something going. And I think that's a wise decision for the Atlanta Hawks to take Obi Toppins off the board at number 4. With the Detroit Pistons on the clock at number 5, I have them taking a point guard, and they desperately need one. Derrick Rose is, getting up there in age. He's not going to be there for too long, and you would think that they're probably going to use him as a bargaining chip for a team that's going to make a playoff run next year, try to bring some assets back. So there's going to be in the need of the point guard. You don't want to give that over to someone like Langston Galloway or any other point guard they have on their roster, like Jordan Boone. So I have them taking Killian Hayes, the French point guard. Um, I think he's a good fit. He's young. He's got great size at 6'5", left-handed, can push the ball, a good on-ball defender, and averages a decent amount of assists. He was like 12-6 last year overseas, so those are good numbers for definitely for an 18-year-old point guard. And it is there's gonna and he can learn from Derrick Rose this if they keep him learn from him for a year or so before he actually takes the reins, and just have someone who can get this ship going in the right direction. Just have a weird roster, not anything to be too enthusiastic about the future. They didn't get anything out of Blake Griffin at all last year, and that was extremely disappointing for them. So maybe he can come back healthy, and then with a young point guard like Killian Hayes, they can start trying to be competitive in the Eastern Conference. That's not a big ask either in the Eastern Conference, trying to fight for that 7th to 8th seed. So drafting a point guard of the future like Killian Hayes is something that'll get the Pistons going in the right direction. With the 6th pick in this year's draft, I have the New York Knicks, and I have them taking Denny Avdija out of Israel. I think Denny's going to be a good pick just for the simple fact that he's a versatile player. He can push the ball up the floor. He can play the 1, the 2, the 3, or the 4 at 6'9", and just in fact bringing some new type of talent on that team. I don't really like the current makeup of the Knicks roster at all. Too many individuals on that team, guys that aren't team players, and I just don't think have winning attitude towards playing. Julius Randle comes to mind. They got rid of Marcus Morris, but he was there at one point. Bobby Portis, another guy that has talent, but to me, he's too focused on individual play. I think Denny will be a breath of fresh air. You get him with R.J. Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, and you have something to build around. And you can still keep Frank and give him another look at as well, being that Denny can still play point and have Frank play off ball, because Frank is a good defender. Just hasn't made that leap in talent-wise as I think people anticipated when he was drafted by the Knicks a few years ago. But Denny, he's played in some good leagues overseas. He's played with NBA talent. I believe he's on the same team as Amari Stoudemire over there in Tel Aviv right now. So he understands how the NBA ball is played. And I'm sure Amari's giving him some tips in that regard. I think if Denny's on the board, he has to be snatched up by the New York Knicks. And hopefully he's have them going in the right direction, as they're another team that just wants to be in the conversation when you're in your last 15 or 20 games, trying to see if you can sneak into that 8th seed. And I think Denny's a great choice for them going forward. So number 6, New York Knicks, Denny Avdija out of Tel Aviv. Next up, with the 7th pick, I have the Chicago Bulls. And with the 7th pick, I have them taking Isaac Okoro out of Auburn. It's weird with the Chicago Bulls because I like their roster. I just don't really understand why they're not winning yet. I know they dealt with a lot of injuries last year with guys like Otto Porter not being available for most of the year, who's one of their highest paid players. Not really getting anything out of Chris Dunn yet. But Zach LaVine was lights out. Should have been an all-star. I thought, it's hard being on a losing team, but Zach was putting up nice numbers. Solid veteran Thaddeus Young. So they have the pieces there. I know Wendell Carter Jr. was out for a long time too. And I believe Markkanen would spend some time out. So they dealt with a lot of injuries. That being said, I think Isaac Okoro fits in well. I think he's a young, athletic, aggressive, defensive guard that can also play some small forward. I think he could be their Marcus Smart, and be the spark for this team defensively. Even though I don't think he'll come in and be an immediate starter, I think Isaac Okoro will be a guy that finishes a lot of games for them. He can play on your point guards. He can switch 1 through 3. He's strong. He can run the floor. And not a good shooter, but I see him getting some easy transition buckets, especially with someone like Zach LaVine, who puts a lot of pressure on your defense. Just another guy that can help advance the culture in Chicago. If guys stay healthy this year, they have the pieces in place, and I think he's another one that can have them back in the playoffs quicker than a lot of other teams. So, with the seventh pick in this year's draft, Chicago Bulls, I have them taking Isaac Okoro out of Auburn. With the number 8 pick in this year's draft, we have the Charlotte Hornets on deck, and they are going to take Onyeka Okongwu out of USC. Kongwe is the type of player I think they desperately need. Aggressive guy who could switch on defense, easy baskets, powerful dunker. 16 and 8 last year at USC. Doesn't really need the ball on the perimeter to score. An active live body. I like what Charlotte has been doing over the last few years. I think they hit on P.J. Washington. Devontae Graham looks like he's going to be a good surprise going forward. They need to get rid of the dead weight like Bizback, Biombo, and also Nicholas Batum, who's been there for a few years and hasn't really produced or lived up to the contract. They do, like I said, they do have some nice young players on that team, and I think this will be another good piece to add going forward. You could plug him in at center right now, right after the draft. He can start at center right away, and help Charlotte pay dividends immediately. They're another team that was close, a game or two away, almost actually being in the bubble right now to play for that eighth seed, but their record was a little bit too off. But I think adding a player like Onyeka will help a lot. What they're trying to build down there, and this is another piece of the puzzle because it seemed like they've drafted decently over the last few years. Like they've kind of hit on some guys that have some winning attitudes, and this will help them go a long way to not being who the Charlotte Hornets have notoriously been over the last several years. So to reiterate, with the 8th pick, the Charlotte Hornets are taking Onyeka Okongwu out of USC. With the Washington Wizards at number 9 on the clock, I have them taking a guy that probably a lot of in other drafts that probably is going to be lower, but I think this is a guy you should grab early if you can, and is a good fit for them. It's Aaron Naismith out of Vanderbilt. Aaron Naismith is a bucket. I mean, just plain simple. He only played 14 games last year with an injury, but he wound up averaging 23 points a game with almost 5 rebounds a game, shooting 51% from the field and 52% from three. 82% from the free throw line. You can't be mad at that. And the Washington Wizards need guys that can just put the ball in the hole off the bench. They're solid with Brill, John Wall, Davis Bertans. Handling the scoring load, even though John hasn't played with Bertans yet. If they can re-sign him, that'd be a good keep. Rui Hachimura, their draft pick from last year, is showing a lot of promise. Right now, I think he's going to take a leap going into his second year. You add a guy like Naismith who can either start at your 3 or be your backup shooting guard with Bradley Beal. You're adding some good firepower for a team, and that definitely needs that spark, especially when John Wall and Beal aren't on the floor, a guy that you can go to. You put him in that unit with someone like Troy Brown who can play the 1 or the 2 as well. Now you can kind of gives the coaching staff a little bit of flexibility in their lineups. And also, Naismith is going to be able to provide the Washington Wizards with some security if he keeps progressing and stays healthy because, there's always a possibility of losing someone like Bradley Beal. But if this guy can show promise, and trend in that direction, then, you're not feeling too bad about letting go of someone like Bradley Beal and bringing some assets back in return. So I think the smart, safe pick for the Washington Wizards at number 9 is taking Aaron Naismith out of Vanderbilt. The Phoenix Suns are on the board with the 10th pick. And with that pick, I have them taking Tyrese Halliburton out of Iowa State. I think this is a good pick for the Phoenix Suns for sure. He's a combo guard that averaged 15 points a game, 6 rebounds, and 6.5, 7 assists per game, and shooting 50% from the field. He can fill it up. He's a combo guard, 6'5". If Ricky Rubio leaves, he's a plug and play automatically in the backcourt with Devin Booker. If not, you can bring him off the bench, or you can maybe even play some small ball where you move Devin Booker to the 3, Halliburton at the 2. uh, Kelly Oubre at the 4, but you still have Ayton at the 5 to as a big to protect them on the backside to anchor that defense. But Halliburton, proved clutch from 3-point land this year. I thought he did well at Iowa State, and I think he's an excellent pick for the Phoenix Suns to grab if he's available with the 10th pick. It makes a lot of sense, and hope they do it. That's exactly what they need. With the 11th pick in the draft, I have the San Antonio Spurs taking Devin Vassell out of Florida State. I think this is an excellent pick for the San Antonio Spurs, as Devin Vassell is a system player. He played at Florida State under Lindell Hamilton, who does have NBA experience as a coach. And Devin Vassell knows his role playing within that system. And that's exactly the type of player Greg Popovich likes, for sure. He's an excellent 3-and-D player, the type of player everybody's drooling over now at 6'7". He can pick up point guards 90 feet. He can switch on twos, and he can stay with some threes, but except for probably on the block. But, his athleticism, he can definitely hoard the fort until help comes, for sure. And he's also an excellent three-point shooter. This year, he was able to shoot 41% from the three-point line, while he was shooting 49% from the field. So very reliable in that regard. And he's not a guy that's going to demand the ball in isolation, anything of that nature. But if you leave him alone in the corner, you're definitely going to pay. And he's going to give you every ounce of energy that he has on the floor. And he's the exact type of player that Greg Popovich wants to have, and Greg Popovich is going to need, because the San Antonio Spurs veterans, they are getting up there in the while. And it's time that they start, bringing in some young talent and maybe even phasing out some of these guys, seeing if they can get some assets for them, like a LaMarcus Aldridge, Rudy Gay, and DeMar DeRozan. Those guys have been there for a while, and in the West, it's hard. It's hard to contend. And even though those guys are great talents, I just don't think they have it within them to hold teams to the demands that the Western Conference has, especially with all that young talent out there. So the San Antonio Spurs are going to start making that cultural change, start turning over some of that roster, infecting it with new blood. And I think Devin Vassell is a way to get that started right now. And that's who they'll take with the 11th pick in the draft this year. With the Sacramento Kings on the clock at pick number 12, I have them taking Precious Achiuwa out of Memphis. Precious had a very solid year for Memphis this year, especially for a guy that pretty much had to play out of position, with James Wiseman not being able to play only but 3 games for the season. Precious was rock solid. I mean, established himself well, averaged 15 or basically 16 and 11 for the season while shooting 49% from the field. Not bad at all. He's a good energy hustle player. He reminds me of Onyeka Okongwu in a way, just that undersized center who's aggressive, can switch out, block shots, rebound, very aggressive attacking the rim. And he's a guy with the Sacramento that, he can play some undersized center, even though you have guys like Marvin Bagley and Harry Giles on the team that are bigger. Precious is, I think, strong and has a little more dog in him than those guys. And also Marvin Bagley needs to prove himself. He hasn't really did anything in the second year. I don't know if you can chalk it up to injury if you like, but the bottom line is, his name is not ringing bells in the league like it should for a guy who's going into his third year next year. So Precious Achiuwa, I think he'll come in. He can immediately just do the little things that every team needs. Every team needs a player like that, where you don't have to give them the ball, where they'll get theirs off the rim. He's going to run the floor. He's going to rebound. He's not going to force shots. He's going to get you extra possessions. And those are the little things, especially in the West, where you're going to need if you're going to be a team fighting to get one of those top 8 playoff seeds. So Sacramento, I think they just keep adding to what they're trying to build out there. And with the 12th pick, I have them taking Precious Achiuwa out of Memphis. With the 13th pick in this year's draft, we have the New Orleans Pelicans on the board, and I have them taking Saddiq Bey out of Villanova. Yeah, a lot of you might think this is a reach, but you know what? This is my draft, so I'll pick the players I think that fit well and the players I like, and I think are good. And Saddiq Bey is a guy I think that's a very good basketball player. Is he going to go to New Orleans and start immediately? No, and they don't need him to. But, as a guy who this year who was giving Villanova what 16, 5, and 3 assists a game, he's just rock solid. You put him on, you come put him on your bench with your second unit right now with New Orleans, he's going to give you good minutes. If it's late in the shot clock, he has a ball, he can still ISO and pull up right in your face, knock down a three. He's going to kill you if you leave him wide open in the corner for sure behind the arc. And he can also play down on the block. He's not super athletic, but he knows how to use what he has. And I think that's something that's extremely underrated in the NBA today when they evaluate talent. He knows what he is and he uses what he has very well. And he's just going to be another piece that's going to help that team going forward. They're pretty much established with their vets and the young talent they have. He's just another guy that can come in and help that second unit and give him some very strong minutes. And if he's rolling that day, you give him some more minutes down the line. But I think Saddiq Bey is an excellent pick to go along with the culture they're already building down there in New Orleans. And he can help them keep doing what they're doing, which is try to get into the playoffs and eventually build their way up to become a contender in the next 3 or 4 years. With the 14th pick on the clock, we have the Portland Trailblazers. Now, Portland can go in a lot of different directions because they're one of the better teams that are kind of showing in this pre-draft listing. And they're very established what they have. But looking at their roster, I think they'll need to grab a guard, and maybe even a point guard. Just someone that they can put behind Damian Lillard, who can spell Lillard for a little while, maybe playing with Anthony Simmons if he's shown some growth in his game as a little dynamic duo in the backcourt there. And I think they're going to take Tyrese Maxey out of Kentucky. This is a safe, good pick for Portland Trail Blazers as there's no pressure to draft Maxey at this position. We know he's not going to start, but he can learn from Damian Lillard. He can come in and prove himself, maybe save Damian Lillard's legs for the fourth quarter so he can provide some extra strength to do his heroics as he does. And then also he maybe even allow Damon to slide the two sometimes with Maxey coming in and just change things up a little bit. It's just they're in a position where they can just grab anybody really, but I think that it'd be wise for him to maybe take one of the best or the best available lead guards that are still available in the draft. And I think Tyrese Maxey fits the bill for Portland perfectly. And there you have it, folks. We just wrapped up our 2020 NBA mock draft selections. This is, of course, before the NBA draft lottery, so these picks are draft order is definitely subject to change, but just a quick recap. We have James Wiseman going number 1 overall to the Golden State Warriors. LaMelo Ball, number 2 with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Anthony Edwards, number 3, going to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Obi Toppins, number 4 to the Atlanta Hawks. Killian Hayes, number 5, going to the Detroit Pistons. Denny Abijah going number 6 to the New York Knicks. Isaac Okoro going number 7 to the Chicago Bulls. Onyeka Okongwu going number 8 to the Charlotte Hornets. Aaron Naismith going number 9 to the Washington Wizards. Tyrese Halliburton going number 10 to Phoenix. Devin Vassell going 11 to the San Antonio Spurs. Precious Achiuwa going number 12 to the Sacramento Kings. Saddiq Bey going number 13 to the New Orleans Pelicans. And last but not least, we have Tyrese Maxey going number 14 to the Portland Trailblazers. So, folks, I appreciate you watching this video. Please leave a like and a comment. Let me know your draft order, what you think as well, and subscribe so that you'll get the latest and greatest as we crank out new videos going forward as this NBA starts back up. I appreciate you taking your time. It's nothing but love over here. Thanks for the support. This is the Hoops Guru for Beat Street Sports Blast. Peace.